Warning, we are about to spoil Frances Ha. If you haven't seen this movie or plan on seeing it in the future, then click off this video. Or if you've already seen it and don't care, then please continue to stay with us.
Tell me the story of us.
Well, one day you came up to me and said, "Hey Cameron, you want to start a podcast about movies?" And I was like, "No." Then you pulled a gun and said, "Hey Cameron, you want to start a podcast about movies?"
Yeah, that's how I remember it. Maybe with more crying.
Yeah, a little bit. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cinema Roulette in what may set the record for the shortest episode, because this movie is great, but it's just hard to talk about because we don't want to get redundant.
Yeah, okay, so today we're talking Frances Ha. It's a movie I've seen, Cameron has not. Well, I mean, he didn't see it until, we started recording, because of course we have to watch the fucking movie before recording a podcast. So what do you think this is? Some sort of fucking stupid show? It's not a stupid show, it's Cinema Roulette!
Tell me the story of us.
Again?
But, okay, if I were to say, Cameron, what's the plot? What would you say?
Takes place in a city. Things happen.
In New York.
Yep. Takes place in New York. Revolves around two girls. And they do stuff.
I can go a bit deeper.
Yeah. Main girl's name is Frances. And she has a friend whose name I forget, but she has glasses and is cute. And they live together. And
fuck, that's gonna bother me if I don't remember her name.
Yeah, go ahead and look that up. But they're living together, and one day, because Frances has a boyfriend at the beginning, and she's the boyfriend asked her to move in with them, and she's like, "Oh no, I'm staying with my other person, and I'm going to renew the lease with her." And the boyfriend gets all pissy, and they break up. And then girl ends up leaving, and
Sophie,
thank you. Then Sophie leaves and starts a relationship with another guy, and Frances's life kind of just slowly goes downhill until, life works out and it's resolved in the end. It's basically
the best way to describe this movie is a comedy of someone's life falling apart, but not in a movie way where it's like everything goes to hell, a parent dies, that they become homeless. No, this is kind of a realistic your life falls apart sort of thing.
Yeah, and that's why, honestly, those scenes where, conflict does happen kind of hurt a bit more because it's relatable. Like, you could totally see yourself go through it. It's nothing, major or world-bending or it's, a lot hinges on this. It's just a bunch of minor problems that end up piling up and slowly derailing someone's life a bit. Not completely derailing it, but derailing it to the point where they start getting depressed and kind of start self-sabotaging themselves. It's weird.
Yeah, and it's actually really interesting to see how Frances deals with Sophie leaving her, in a sense.
Because they had been together for, God, who knows how long.
Since college, they say.
College, yeah, they had lived
I'm
together.
hearing an echo of myself, by the way.
Ah, shit. And we were doing so well without a technical difficulty. Hold on. And we're back. What were we going on about?
Huh?
What were we going on about?
Frances dealing with the loss of Sophie. Not like she dies, but Sophie kind of grows up, basically, before Frances does. And there's this moment later on in the film where Frances is moving in with a different friend. And you can just see her trying to recapture moments she had with Sophie, and it doesn't work at all.
Yeah, because she ends up staying at, a house where, a bunch of artists live. There's two guys and a girl who live there.
No, this is later when she moves in with one of her fellow dancers.
I know what you're talking about, but she was in that house and it works kind of good. But there's one where she moves into a girl's house and you can see her on the street trying to do like a little in joke that they did, and she's kind of moving away like, what the fuck are you doing? So
Yeah, what they used to play fight, and then our girl's just like, what the fuck are you doing?
yeah. Yeah, because it's interesting to see her psyche, and I don't know if she has like, let me think of how to word this. It almost seems like she has a very like dependent personality, like she's very heavily dependent on others or something like that.
Yeah, but almost as if she doesn't want to admit it.
Yeah, where like she's kind of crushed that her friend leaves, and then like when she leaves with her boyfriend, she takes him out to dinner and acts like a total makes a fool of herself basically, and then
Oh yeah, when she gets drunk in front of
yeah,
them, it's just
it's really embarrassing, and I'm like, oof, she's making an ass out of herself and doesn't even realize it at the moment. But like that crushes her, and she just spends like most of the rest of the movie trying to adapt to that change and trying to like recapture what happened, and it's about her trying to live with that and try like cope with her moving on basically.
this is a comedy, by the
Yeah,
way.
it is a kind of like, it has some moments which are dramatic and like some like which are clearly like more like they're not played for comedy, but a lot of it does have like a lighter tone for most of the movie, and it's bizarre how it does it, like how it perfectly meshes the two, honestly, seamlessly.
Yeah, it feels, even though some of the dialogue can either be stilted or seem very off, it still feels very human.
Yeah, it kind of adds to this, like the whole. It has a weird vibe because the movie is clearly a nod to the French New Wave films of the 50s and 60s, like with Jean-Luc Godard and who else? I had one other person I wanted to say, but I forgot.
Jean-Luc Godard.
Jean, is it Jean? Jean-Luc Godard?
Jean-Luc
I've
Godard.
almost got his name down. Jean. Just think Ruby. Jean. But yeah, it's a homage to those because the movie's shot in black and white and has very unconventional edits, which were a thing of the new wave films. Like, and had an interesting music score too, kind of more of an upbeat thing. And I was like, man, this movie really does capture that vibe really well. And of course, there's a moment where she goes to France, and I was like, oh, nice nod there.
Yeah, he impulsively goes to France just to, I think it was just to seem more interesting.
Well, it was that, and she had the person over there she wanted to meet up with in France, and then she kept the person. She kept calling him, saying, "Hey, I'm in Paris. You want to meet up?" And she just basically kept ignoring her until the last day she was there.
No, not even the last day she was there. When she was leaving,
Yeah,
she finally got a message.
She was like on her way from the taxi cab or something to the airport, and she was like, "Oh, sorry, I missed your call." And at that point, she's like, "Oh, thanks," But
And I would say we're jumping around a lot, but in the film, you don't ever get a real sense of how much time is between each cut.
yeah, like it seems like we're jumping around, but the movie also jumps around a lot, and you have to use a lot of the clues in the scene and the dialogue and like what's around her to pick up on how much time has passed. Because like there's a thing where like I think it was summer, but then it jumps around to Christmas, and then all of a sudden it's next summer again. And she was like, "Oh,
it was the fall. Then it jumps to Chris. It still does go linear.
yeah,
It ends around I want to say, I think it ends in the summer.
yeah." But
Or maybe it ends after a year has passed. That would make more sense.
yeah, it probably did. That would make sense. But yeah, like it is linear, but it jumps around in the timeline a lot. Like it could focus on like a few days, and then all of a sudden just jump up months ahead in time, and then next few days, and then just like it's next week, and then jump around like to next season. It's strange. And now
Yeah, the main one I think of is during the opening, you see Sophie and Francis on a train, and Sophie mentions how she's not going to pay for the lease and she's going to be moving.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just suddenly cuts to Francis in the apartment, and it's the 2 months later after Sophie's moved out.
How did we pick up on the 2 months, by the way? Where was
she said the lease was 2 more months.
Oh, it was early. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Because I was trying to look around. I was like, see how you picked up on that. Okay.
Yeah, Sophie says she'll she'll be there for the rest of the lease, which was 2 more months.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and then just cuts her sleeping alone, trying to deal with life
and touching the pot that was too fucking hot.
Yes, I remember that.
Rhymes. Um, I don't know if I want to talk about the ending scene yet, because I really like that scene.
That's fair.
Should we do that yet? Should we move on to other things, or should we continue talking about the plot moments of the movie?
We can wait till the ending to say like how it resolves and everything.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Characters, I would say, would be next.
Yeah. They're very well done. Even if I can't remember everybody's name, but hey, when has that ever happened on Cinema Roulette here?
I would say play every clip where we forget someone's name, but then this episode would be 2 hours.
Exactly. But no, like all the characters are very well defined, and I'm trying to think of how to really describe them.
Human.
Yeah,
Just
human
human.
would be honestly the simplest way, because they each have their own personalities and stuff. But yeah, again, there were times when like I noticed, especially towards the beginning, when Francis's dialogue just seemed a little like stilted, just because her delivery is kind of weird. But
then again, later on, we do kind of know she is a pretty awkward person.
Yeah, we find that out, because she's just like, oh, da 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 da, and I'm just like, was that a bad read or was that on purpose? But you kind of get used to it, and again, it just the mix of that and the mix of just the very strange dialogue, which we'll get to, just kind of adds to the vibe of this movie. It's a very unique movie, honestly.
Greta Gerwig,
Yes,
is who played Frances, and if you're thinking why do you know that name, it's because she directed Lady Bird as well.
Yeah. You might remember that movie came out a couple of years, or was it last year or the year before?
I don't remember. 2018 was 6 years long.
It really was. But yeah, it came out last year or the year before, and got a lot of critical acclaim. So,
which actually, from what I saw, Lady Bird, it does sort of keep the same tone as Frances Ha, very indie, sort of down to earth feel.
Yeah, except that one's in color.
It is. It also has an opening scene that makes me burst out laughing.
Does it really?
Oh, it's great, and I won't spoil it.
All
but
right.
Actually, before getting on the characters, this movie is the definition of indie film.
Oh yeah.
It's black and white. It's very low budget. Like, you can tell there was some guerrilla filmmaking here.
Mm-hmm.
It's a reference to classical cinema.
Yep.
And it's just calmer. I don't know how to put... I'm not sure if you can relate to this, but like watching indie films, there's always this much more chill vibe to them usually.
Yeah, exactly, because they're not trying to do anything too big or bombastic, because they either don't have the budget for it, or B, that's not the point of the film. But yeah, basically.
Well, then again, this is probably true for indie films after the Mumble era, because like Quentin Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs, that's technically an indie film.
Yeah. But yeah, like there was a genre that was, I think it started in 2002 that I read and is going on nowadays, called Mumblecore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's much more just low-key, character-focused, like focused on interpersonal relationships, people in their 20s and 30s. It's a very like niche genre. It's the one that Greta Gerwig started out with, actually. So
yeah. Also, Kylo Ren's here.
yeah, Adam Driver's just in the movie. I know this is before he was big and all, but it's just weird to see him there.
Yeah, because you noticed it was him. I didn't even realize it until you pointed it out. It was like, oh shit, that is him. I know that nose.
Yeah, it was his nose and his eyes and just the way he talked. He had that deep voice.
Yeah, he plays... I want to say character stereotypes, like, because he's kind of a player.
Yeah, a little bit.
But he's still human. It's not...
Yeah, it's not...
It never goes into stereotype, which is very nice.
Yeah, he's not a film player. You know, he's just like a more like real life player. Like, he doesn't go around like saying, yo ladies, what's up, and stuff like that. He's just kind of, he does his thing, and it just shows him that he's with different ladies a lot, and he even hits on what would you say the other person's name was?
Sophie.
He hits on Sophie, comes out of the shower shirtless, like saying, hey, you want to see more of me, or something like that. I don't know.
No, I like that moment. he's getting ready for a shower. He passes by Francis and Sophie and is like, I'm doing this because I want you to look at me,
Yeah.
or something like that.
It's hilarious.
There's just something nice about this movie. I'm not sure if it was improvised a lot or if it was
That
fully
would make
written.
sense. Yeah, and because it, like, well, just put a cap on what we were saying earlier about it being the definition of an indie film. It's just think of every indie movie stereotype, and this probably has it.
But think of every good indie movie stereotype.
Mm-hmm.
Take out the pretentiousness, and then you probably got this movie.
Yeah, because there's a lot of indie films where you can watch it and you can tell they're being very pretentious.
It's like, we have a low budget, but I want to be seen as an artist.
Yeah. Or there's indie film directors that I've personally run into that want to do something different just because they're basically hipsters, like film hipsters, because, oh, that's the way the mainstream does it. I'm going to do it more this way.
I think a lot of people won't get past the mainstream now because it's getting boring.
Well, yeah, but you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know who you're talking. The people who are like, I'm going to use a Dutch angle here because
Yeah.
film school would say don't.
Yeah, exactly. There was just to tell a little short story. There was, because I edited for college and a bunch of different like film I edited one, and the director, there was one shot that kind of logically made sense where I think they take a sleeping bag and throw it in the trunk of a car, and like they pick it up from the outside, he throws it in the car, and like it's from the inside of the car, and you see the sleeping bag go in, the door closed, and then it ended, and he actually told me, he's like, oh, I don't want to use that shot, it's too like Hollywood or something like that. I'm like, it's a cool shot, why would you not use it?
Yeah, I don't mind going again because again, this is very new wave, so the cutting and some of the shots are very against what mainstream cinema would do.
Yeah, but it's
Which
not,
I don't mind that. It's just when you're being a prick about it.
yeah, like this movie does that because it knows the kind of vibe it wanted to go for. Like they did the unconventional editing just to kind of add to the weird atmosphere that it had going for it, honestly.
Which I do find it odd how it works so well, even though you can basically tell when every cut happens.
Yeah, one of the ones that sticks out to me is when they're talking and they have like an argument. It's like, well, I text you about, well, I didn't, well, I did, well, I didn't, and then like Sophie says something like, hey, you want to do this? And it just hard cuts to them in the room, just not arguing, just talking. I'm like,
Yep.
Okay, I guess you guys got over that fairly quickly.
Also, I'm trying to remember if there were any like specific. Well, one specific shot that I always love is early on in the film when they're riding in a taxi together and Francis is passed out drunk.
Mm-hmm.
All you see is Sophie's glasses highlighted in darkness.
Those are always so cool.
That just looks so. The camera work in this is fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Honestly,
The cinematography is fantastic. Like even for like a super low budget indie film, the cinematography is
I
fantastic.
don't know if it's actually low budget.
Well,
I'm going to look it up because I like looking at movie budgets.
That's fine. I know you do. That is true. He's not like saying as a joke that he literally likes doing that.
I do this because I'm petty.
You heard it here, ladies and gentlemen.
Apparently it was estimated $3 million.
Really? Which is still a really, really small budget, but
So you could make over 300 Francis Ha's with Endgame. Anyway.
Here we go.
This is a topic for another day, and I won't get too much into it.
Keep that one on the back burner, ladies and gentlemen. But
This bugs me amazingly.
I know it does, but we have to keep moving on so we don't get sidetracked.
I love sidetracks though.
I do too, but we don't want to drag this out longer than it needs to be.
But we need that sweet, sweet ad revenue.
Oh yes, all the ad revenues from all the 20 views average that we get.
Oh wait, because Justin likes pointing out when certain things were shot. Right about now, you should have seen this for a couple of episodes a good handful of episodes at this point, I think.
Yeah.
Is the drawn sketch from I'm forgetting her name.
You just can't wait to mention this, can you?
I can't. I'm excited about it, and I like And I liked showing that we totally have a big ass backlog.
No, yeah, we're both really excited about this. Let's not lie, but he let's sure we'll announce it early. Why not?
It's not early. It's been out.
Well, this has been out, but I don't know it. Well, the drawing will be done by then, probably. Yeah.
But by the point this episode comes out, yes.
Okay. So yeah. Honestly, the drawing has probably been used for the past bunch of episodes, so it would be really weird hearing us say, "Oh man, we can't wait to do this."
Yeah, we just ordered it. I love showing the time when we actually record these. It makes me happy.
Why do you like to do this to me?
I don't know. It makes me happy. I'm not sure. It might ruin the illusion for someone, but I don't care.
Oh my god.
This drawing is great. This is the artist's name. I'm forgetting it at the moment. She's great.
She's you should probably look that up real quickly, honestly, since we've been using it.
Do you want me to look? I mean,
please look her name up.
Okay.
Yes.
Here, hold on.
I'm gonna munch on a piece of pizza while you do that. Oh.
Which is worse, breaking the illusion of when the podcast was shot, or eating over the mic?
Eating over the mic.
Her Tumblr right at the moment of recording, because I don't know if she'll change it, is called Teller's Place.
Teller's Place.
She's great, and I'm happy about this.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Sorry. That was a small tangent. We're back now.
It's just a little bit, but yes, we're back.
Well, we're talking about an artsy movie, so I talked about art. See, it connects.
All right, fair enough. I'll give you that. I'll just let that slide for tonight.
Woo! Anywho, where were we?
You were saying something about that cool shot with the...
Oh yeah, talking about the camera work. Besides the shot in the car, I can't think of a specific shot I enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
But something about this film, like, in my head, I liked every shot, but I can't describe it. It's almost dreamlike in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
The way I'm remembering it.
Well, that's fair because it jumps around a lot from like point to point to point. So it makes sense that it'd be more fragmented in your mind because it really is kind of a fragmented movie, honestly.
Yeah, and just, I don't know, the cities at night in black and white just look so pretty.
Yeah, they did a good job with the photography because I don't know, since this was shot in 2013, I don't know if they originally shot it in color then converted it to black and white. So either way, they did a great job.
Oh, another thing I enjoy is that they clearly used, what's it called? I think it's called, like, source lighting.
Mm-hmm.
Because when they're in the apartment, there can be areas where they're almost completely in darkness because they're only using the lights of the apartment.
Yeah, the shot that comes to mind is the one at the end, when Sophie is drunk and they're in bed together again and they're reunited and stuff, and they're talking and it's just almost pitch black.
I was thinking more earlier when they're in Kylo Ren's apartment and, like, when they're in the kitchen area, there's clearly this big light that lights up their face, but then they go over by a bookshelf or TV area and they're almost completely in darkness.
Yeah, they use a lot of natural light. It's cool.
Natural light, that's the word I was looking for. Just like this movie. This is, if I made a list of, like, things I'd watch when I just want to be cheered up, Frances Ha would be one of the films on there.
Yeah, it's a very good movie. It does make you feel good, but, like, there is conflict and things that make you feel sad, but it doesn't really last the whole movie.
It is kind of a movie, like, even if you beat yourself down, things kind of get better no matter what.
Exactly. Very uplifting message. But another thing we do have to talk about is the weird dialogue.
Is the what?
The dialogue.
I like the dialogue.
I liked it too, but the thing that really stuck out to me was all the sexual talk. Like, just out of nowhere, it's these very, like, frank conversations, and characters are just like, yeah.
Well, also think about, like, when we're playing video games at 1 a.m. or whatever, where our conversations will randomly go.
Well, yeah, but like the thing about it is this dialogue seems to happen like all the time throughout the movie. It isn't just 1 a.m. when playing games. It's like they just talk all the time. It's like, oh, he cummed in my face, and they're just kind of just casually talking about this, and like in groups too. It's like, oh, well, I fucked this person, and Francis just goes on like, yeah, it was a great day today, and it's just odd because like no one acts surprised by it. Like they kind of I think at the beginning, her and Sophie chuckle at the jokes, but like they just say shit like that and no one just bats an eye.
I don't know why. My brain just doesn't see that as weird.
It's very bizarre. But
Oh, I can't hear you. Hold on.
no, that is a very bizarre thing, honestly.
It's not.
Like,
I don't know. I see it's
not,
normal.
It's not like you get used to it, but it's very jarring at first. Honestly, that is like those are not normal conversations to have that just no one would bat an eye at. Like it doesn't even have to be like long or drawn out. It's just like someone would be like, oh, and then react that way, but no one even reacts to this dialogue, which is strange to me.
Well, I don't think it's going to be odd for Frances because we see her hanging out with Sophie as mostly gang shit-faced at a club.
Yeah, but they're not drunk all the time on it. Like these are just it's not just them. It's like other characters too that just have these like random like sex things. It's just odd to me.
I don't know. I guess I know people like that who will just bring up sex things, and it's like, okay,
I do
cool.
too, but like everyone in this movie does it. That's the weird thing. Like it's not just one character. Like everybody talks this way. It's that. But again, I didn't mind it because it just kind of added to the atmosphere of the movie.
I don't know. I think we feel a bit differently on this one.
No, well,
on that point, at least.
Yeah, I don't know how you don't find that weird. That is not a normal thing to talk about. I mean, it is, but not.
Well, I guess it's because I don't find stuff like sex and awkward conversation. It's weird.
Well, I don't either, and I'm just saying, like to the normal average viewer, that's very strange, because I'm very open about my sexuality, but like there's times to talk about it and people to talk about it too. It's not just everyone going around like, yo, I fucked this chick last week. Oh, that's cool. My day was great. Not even bat an eye. See, you're laughing. You're reacting.
You should try. Well, when you put it exactly like that, then yeah, it's funny.
It is. But yeah, that's the thing. It's funny. That's why I didn't mind it, was because it added to the comedy and it added to the vibe of the movie. Like
I want to see you try that at work now. Just like get one of your coworkers in on it. Just be like,
yeah.
Yo, I fucked this girl till she was unconscious. Yeah, my day was great too.
Yeah, exactly. I was fucking someone and they came in my face. Oh yeah, that was good. Yeah, right. So I talked to my parents today and just make everyone just feel super uncomfortable.
It gets worse when your boss comes in. It's like, yeah, same.
That would be hilarious. Oh my god. But yeah, the dialogue. I think the thing we can agree on is it's strange, but it's natural at the same time, and I can't quite put my.
Yeah, it doesn't go like Twin Peaks level of strange, but there are moments where it's like, did you have to elaborate that much on the sentence, or? I don't know.
Yeah, but it's strange dialogue, but at the same time, it feels natural. I don't know how they pulled it off, but they did. Anything
I'm trying
else?
to think if there's anything else other than the final scene that I want to talk about.
Music.
Yeah, music was good.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool like rock and funk songs, and they're actually like the one when she was in Paris, like with that like cool ass neon guitar. I was kind of like bobbing my head to. I was like, oh, this is bitchin'.
Or when she's kind of dancing down the street, thinking she's going to be in the Christmas recital.
I love that shot of her. Yeah, of her. Like I think there's one or two shots of her running through the street, and I love those shots.
I kind of wonder how they got that.
Yeah.
Not like, oh, it's an impossible shot. I mean, just, it's kind of hard to shoot on a New York City street like that.
Yeah, again, they probably did use a lot of guerrilla filmmaking tactics. So
In Chicago, it would have been legal.
Yep.
I'm not sure what the laws in New York are.
Not New York, no, yeah. And it is clearly New York, too, because I think you do see, like, the city and some famous things from it.
Yeah, and I think they say it's New York.
Yeah.
Like, they mentioned Boston and all that shit.
Yeah, so it's not like they're in Atlanta doubling for another city. This is clearly New York.
Yeah.
Why is
Which I find funny that the low-budget indie film actually shoots in New York, yet high-budget Hollywood films will shoot in Vancouver or something.
Yeah. Well, and Atlanta is the big one. Like, there are so many... Like, if there's a video on it, I forget who made it, but like they pointed out like all these different movies that Atlanta, Georgia was used for.
Yeah, it's between Atlanta and Toronto.
Yes, Vancouver. Yeah,
I think I said Vancouver.
You said
I don't know
Vancouver, but yeah, that in Toronto. Well, just probably because they're cheaper, honestly. I think that's.
Yeah, and all you need to do for Toronto is put up USA Today boxes, and then people think it's America.
Pretty much, yeah. There's nothing really.
No, that's not a joke. That's what movies do.
No, I know. But the thing is, besides the Toronto Needle, there's not really much that sticks out about Toronto. So I've been to Toronto. It looks a lot like America.
Have you been to Toronto while listening to Toto?
Oh, motherfucker. No, I haven't.
Sad.
Yeah, no, because I was gonna say something else because I know. Again, I think it is just cost because obviously shooting in Chicago and New York is more expensive. I know there was a remake series in the 1980s of the Mission Impossible TV show that ran for 2 seasons, and that was shot entirely in Australia, actually, and doubled for like New York or one of the cities because it was just significantly cheaper to film it in Australia.
I mean, yeah, you can pay actors off with just a couple of beers. That's what Mad Max did.
It is. But no, they had like all American actors. But yeah, for like stuntmen and stuff, yeah, it's very easy to find people in Australia who are daredevils willing to do that shit. So yeah, soundtrack was great, cinematography, and I think that's it besides the ending, honestly.
I like the ending scene. Well, okay, this isn't technically the ending. We have a happy ending. Francis getting her fucking life together. But there's this very intimate moment of Sophie and Francis. Sophie gets horribly fucking shit-faced at a party.
Clearly the relationship between her and her
she is currently the fiance to some guy, and they live in Japan at the moment because he runs a publishing business.
That's the word I was looking for, fiance. Okay.
But they somehow Sophie actually... Okay, hold on. Let me set up the scene properly.
Sure.
Currently, Frances is working a job at her old college as a waiter, and there's a big donation event, and Sophie kind of forced her husband to donate there because it was her school too. And Frances runs into Sophie, and she is fucking shit-faced and is yelling at her husband and just kind of going off on everything.
Yeah, she says, I think, to the waiter that's serving them at one point too, it's like, yeah, this dickbag I'm engaged to, or something like that.
Yeah, she's plastered. But eventually, the event ends, and Frances is going to get a ride back to the dorm where she is currently living. And Sophie goes with her instead of her husband because, you know, they're still fighting. And they have this intimate moment in I think they say it's like a queen size bed. It's just a very small bed.
Yeah, they had a bigger bed when they were together, and now it's like a little bed.
And Sophie talks about how she doesn't want to live in Japan anymore, how she wants to come back home, be with Francis, and how they can kind of get their life back to normal. And it's just this sort of touching moment I get. I don't know how to put it. There's this sort of warming moment that Sophie feels the same way as Francis has throughout the entire movie.
Mm-hmm.
But they eventually pass out, and in the morning Sophie leaves before Francis does, saying she doesn't remember a single thing, and heads off to the funeral which they originally came for. she came with her husband for in the first place.
Yeah, because she said all this stuff like, "Oh, I don't want to be with him. We can do this, and we can go back to the way." Blah 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 blah. But then when she wakes up and she's sober, she realizes, yeah, she doesn't remember it, and even if she did, she probably realized like, "Wow, I was drunk. I shouldn't have said that," and goes back to how she's living.
Well, I think that depends on how you take it. If it was her actually being honest with herself because she was drunk, or if it was just a drunken sort of rage over nothing. And Francis does try to run and like talk to her again, but Sophie drives off. And then this somehow motivates her to get her life back together.
Yeah. She gets her life back together, and at the very end, there's like a play that she set up because, like, there's basically a free-form dance, I want to say. Like, there's a dancing thing, and...
yeah, Frances works with a dancing company, and she choreographs an interpretive dance.
Yeah, and the cool thing is, like, she's doing this, and it's, like, a big moment for her, and, like, you see her working the soundboard and getting this together, and it's like, oh, she's got her life together, and the coolest thing is, like, they go to this play, and then it just cuts to the audience, and all the characters are in the audience supporting her. I was just like, aw.
And even Kylo Ren's roommate, I'm just going to call him Kylo Ren, because I don't remember.
His real name's Adam Driver, but we'll refer to him as Kylo Ren.
Well, I don't remember. Well, do you remember the character's name? No, it's Kylo Ren.
Okay, fair.
But his roommate clearly was hitting on Francis earlier in the film, but wasn't being a dick about it. And it kind of implies that they get together at the end of the movie.
Yeah, like kind of implies that when her and her friend get together, and clearly Sophie and her husband patch things up because they're both in the audience and seem to be fine. So
they patch things off by forcing Sophie to be sober.
All right, Sophie, time for your intervention.
But yeah, that's kind of Francis Ha.
Sorry, I had to mention this because you brought it up and I'd forgotten about it until now. Because she sees her at the party when she's attending to the one big celeb person, and like she's kind of stealthily looking around, like pouring wine, just kind of trying to stay out of view, trying to peer on Sophie and sees what she's doing. And then she mentions like, "Oh yeah, I'm engaged to this person." She just shouts out in the middle of the room, "You're engaged!" And the room just goes silent, and everyone just turns and looks at her.
My favorite part of that scene is she is sneaking around, like she's like crouched down, but people are still putting drinks towards her to fill.
And she's kind of like stealthily looking and just like pours wine and then looks up. It's great. But yeah, that was Francis Ha, everybody.
Yeah, it's just this very chill movie. And a very down-to-earth one.
Yeah, like there's nothing like big about this, like this is a giant story and like there's like big implications on the economy of the world and everything. No, it's just like this is just normal life for people. It's just following people through their lives. Nothing huge happens. It's just that's just how it is.
Life stuff.
Yeah, basically life stuff. Like nothing really amounts to anything huge. It's just personal life problems, and that's really touching, honestly.
So, yeah, I think we both highly recommend it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome.
Just don't...
But you know what that means.
Well, real quick, we highly recommend it, but don't go in expecting anything like, oh, great movie. It's just nice movie.
Yeah, have a good time, honestly.
Have a good time. Be prepared for a more down-to-earth indie flick if you do watch it. So, yep.
But you know what that means.
It's time.
It's time to spin the wheel. Hopefully... landing on a movie.
I cannot wait. Because we have two that we haven't seen?
We have two that... Well, one of them is one that you've seen and I haven't. The other is one that neither of us have seen. And there's 5 movies we've both seen. And if we land on one of the two, I'm going to scream.
Okay. Oh, I'm excited. Please.
Okay, it's me. Why?
What did we get?
I wanted the episode to end right now.
No. What did we get? the next movie?
It's Taxi Driver.
Yes! Oh. I love it. I fucking love it. Don't break your mic. Don't break your mic, Justin. Justin, come back. Justin. Oh my god.
I want to spin again.
Nope, too late. It's time to hang out with De Niro.
Why have I only been allowed to cheat on this wheel once? It wasn't even this wheel, it was the other wheel.
Exactly, it was the other wheel. Oh, which I don't know if we've admitted before.
I don't care if this. I was going to cleverly do it, but since we recorded some things out of order,
Oh god.
I wasn't able to.
Oh god. All right. So
Anyway.
we'll see you next time for
Ah!
for the rest of Hannibal. Bye, folks.